The rain was relentless. It spilled from the sky like sorrow too heavy to be held back, soaking the platform, the steel rails, and every tired waiting passenger beneath the dim yellow lights. People shuffled under umbrellas, cursing the delay, glancing at their watches, complaining into phones. But Wine stood still. Wine hated train stations, the chaos, the filth, the odd sense of nostalgia they brought. She was returning to a city she didn't want to belong to anymore, a job she didn't love, a fiance who loved her more than she loved him, or maybe not at all. She was lost in her thoughts, tapping her phone aimlessly when she noticed him, a lone man sitting at the far end of the bench. No luggage, no umbrella, just a sketchbook in his hand and earbuds plugged in. His head was down, black hoodie pulled up, but something about him looked achingly still, like he wasn't just waiting for the train. He was escaping something. Wine didn't mean to stare, but the rain danced around him like he didn't belong in it, and he looked up. Dark eyes, disinterested, but sharp, like he would caught her staring 3 seconds ago and let her have that moment anyway. He pulled one earbud out. "You always stare at strangers like that?" he said flatly. "Or am I just lucky tonight?" Wine blinked. "You don't look like the lucky type." He smirked faintly. "Neither do you." She was annoyed and slightly amused. "Wow, do you flirt like this often, or this is your special rainy day personality?" "I don't flirt," he replied. "I just make observations are welcome too, unless you are the polite kind who never says what they are thinking." "I'm not polite," she said. "I think you look like a sad boy from a bad poem." He chuckled, the sound low and unexpected. "A sad boy from a bad poem? That's new." There was a pause, not awkward, just thick with something unspoken. The storm softened around them as if listening. "What are you sketching?" she asked, surprising even herself. He turned the sketchpad around. It wasn't finished, but it was beautiful. A woman standing alone in the rain, facing a train she might never board. Her outline was blurred at the edges, as if she was already fading away. Wine inhaled. "That's someone I haven't met yet," he said, "or maybe already lost. I'm not sure." She felt a shiver, one that wasn't from the cold. Just then, a voice blared from the overhead speakers. Her train was arriving. She stood up slowly, heart racing without reason. Jungkook didn't ask her name. She didn't offer it. The moment was too raw, too accidental to ruin with labels. Wine walked away. But just before she stepped into the train, she turned around. He was still watching her. Neither of them smiled. Neither of them waved. But in that rain-soaked second, something silent passed between them. Not love, not fate, just something. Something dangerous. Enough to be remembered. That was their first meet. It had been 11 days since that night on the platform, since the sketchpad, since him. Vine tried not to think about it, or him, but the memory kept tugging at her during the most random moments, while pouring coffee, while brushing her teeth, while listening to her fiancé drone on about granite countertop options for the new apartment. She didn't even know his name, and yet his silence had left an echo in her. She tried to forget him, but life was always had other plans. It was a cafe this time. Rain again, of course. She was running late from a client meeting and ducked into the nearest cafe to avoid getting drenched. It was the kind of place that smelled like wet books and cinnamon, soft jazz playing low. She was just about to grab the last empty table when, "Looks like you're following me," said a voice, calm, rough, and unmistakably familiar. Her eyes darted up. There he was, same hoodie, same tired eyes, only this time he had a coffee in his hand instead of a sketchpad. Vine blinked. "You are the one in my city. You are following me." He raised an eyebrow. "We met once accidentally." "Twice now. Still accidentally." He gestured at the empty chair across from him. "We could argue across separate tables, or you could just sit." Vine didn't know why she did it. Maybe because she was tired of pretending she wanted what her life had become. Maybe because his voice had the calm her chaos was craving. She sat. They didn't talk for a few minutes. She sipped her coffee. He scribbled something in his notebook. The rain whispered outside. Then finally she asked, "Do you always talk to random women at stations and cafes like this?" "No," he said, eyes not leaving his page. "Just the ones who look like they are running from something." That made her freeze a little. "I'm not." "You are," he said simply, meeting her eyes now. "It's in the way you check the door every 10 seconds and how your smile doesn't touch your eyes." Vine hated how he read her like that. She hated that he was right. "So, what's your story?" she asked, folding her arms. He looked amused. "You asked that like it was simple." "Humor me," he buzzed, then offered. "Once loved someone, lost them, now I paint. That's a condensed version." "Is it recent? Is the egg ever not recent?" He replied quietly. Vine looked away. They said nothing for a while. Just sipped coffee and let the weight of invisible memories hang in the air. Eventually she asked, "Your name?" He looked like he almost didn't want to give it. But then, "Jungkook, and you?" he added after a bit. She hesitated. Then, "Vine." He nodded like he already knew it. She stood suddenly. This was strange." "Yeah, but not bad." Her fingers twitched at her side. She didn't want to go, but she did. And just as she reached the door, he called out, "You forgot something." She turned. "What?" Jungkook tilted his head. "The next time we meet accidentally, it won't be an accident." She told herself not to go, not to pass the cafe again, not to glance at the door hoping he would walk through it, not to remember the way Jungkook said her name, like it was a question he wanted to keep asking. "Why am I feeling like this?" "Behave, Vine, you are engaged." But it's hard to ignore someone who starts living in your mind. Even harder when they somehow start to feel more real than the people already in your life. It was a Tuesday. Sky was dull and grey, the kind of color that makes everything that feels like a sad memory. Vine had stepped into a bookstore after a work meeting. She wasn't looking for anything, just breathing, pretending, and there he was, in the corner, back turned, head tilted to read the spine of a poetry book. Her heart did something it had no business doing. "This is getting ridiculous," she muttered. Before she could stop herself, he turned, slow and amused. "Third time's charm." Vine folded her arms, smirking despite herself. "I'm starting to think you're stalking me." "Same city, same rain, same taste in hiding spots. Maybe the universe is lazy," he said, his voice easy but his eyes sharp. Vine walked closer, letting her fingers run along the shelf. Do you believe in fate? She asked. No, he said it too quickly, too firmly. Why not? Because fate pulls you up just to rip it all away, he said. It lets you fall in love at the worst possible time and then makes you pay for it. She blinked. Is that what happened to you? Jungkook stared at her, then quietly. That's a story for later if we have one. Yvonne didn't answer. She didn't know how to. They ended up walking to the lake nearby. No reason, no plan, just steps taken slowly together. They didn't talk about the past, not hers, not his. Instead, they laughed about the books they hated, foods they loved, the most embarrassing things they had ever done. It felt freeing, like stepping out of a life that was too tight and into one that finally let you breathe. It was dusk when they reached the water. The world around them was golden and still, quiet in a way that made everything feel louder between them. She turned to him. You said the sketch was of someone you hadn't met yet. He looked at her, expression unreadable. Maybe I was wrong. Wine's breath caught in her thought. Their eyes held, no words left. Just distance and all the unsaid things that hung between them like the hush before a storm. She should have walked away, but she didn't, and neither did he. They started to seeing each other more often after that, not planned, not arranged, just somehow they kept orbiting the same places. A coffee shop on Thursdays, a bookstore on Saturdays, a bench near the lake when the sky looked heavy, and it never felt forced. Jungkook didn't ask why she always seemed to have time, and Wine never asked why he always looked like he hadn't slept in days. They didn't talk about their lives outside these little windows of escape. No mention of her engagement, no mention of his past. It was unspoken agreement. What existed out there wasn't allowed in here. And maybe that's why it felt safe, or maybe that's why it felt so damn dangerous. They were sitting on his studio floor on an evening. Paint-stained newspapers were spread everywhere. The walls around them were covered in unfinished canvases. Grief, heartbreak, longing, all twisted in color. Wine picked up a small, crumpled canvas from the corner. It was different from others. It was bright. Sunlight breaking through storm clouds. She held it up. This one doesn't hurt. Jungkook looked over. That was the first thing I painted after she died. Wine froze. He rarely spoke of her. He took the canvas gently from her hands, resting it beside him. His voice dropped into something barely above a whisper. She was light. I was not. I think I ruined her. Or maybe she ruined me by leaving. Wine wanted to reach for him, but didn't. Instead, she asked, And now? Now I paint pain better than love. She nodded slowly, then whispered, Maybe I feel too much and you feel too little. He looked at her, something unreadable flashing in his eyes. I feel everything, Wine, he said. I just don't show it because when I did, I lost everything. Silence filled between them. Not cold, just quiet. She leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. Sometimes I want to scream into a pillow, just to remember what my voice sounds like when it's not pretending to be fine. That made him turn to look at her fully. He didn't speak, he just slowly reached out and took her hand. No pressure, no demand, just a grounding warmth in the middle of their shared mess. They sat like that for a long time, fingers interlaced, pain breathing between them like a third presence. Later, she fell asleep on the floor, her head on his shoulder. He didn't move for hours because for the first time in years, something in his world felt quiet, not silent, just peaceful. Like maybe, just maybe, the world has stopped spinning for them, just for a little while. Another day. It started on a cold evening. The sky was heavy with rain again, and the studio was lit only by the fairy lights strung carelessly across the wall. Music played softly in the background, some old jazz record that crackled like a heartbeat with every note. Wine stood in front of one of Jungkook's canvases, sipping wine from a cheap mug. This one feels like drowning, she murmured, eyes tracing the streaks of grey and blue. Jungkook was sitting on the floor, back against the wall, watching her instead of the painting. That one is drowning, he said softly. I painted it the day I realized I would never stop missing her. Wine turned to him slowly. And now? He shrugged. Now I miss someone else when I'm not supposed to. Her heart thudded too loudly. The air between them grew thick. Too many truths hiding just beneath the surface. Jungkook, she whispered. He stood, lost the space between them. You don't have to say anything, he said, voice low. I just. She kissed him, soft, shaky, hesitant, like stepping out of the edge of something without checking how deep the fall was. They didn't rush, they didn't speak, every moment was slow, reverent, like neither of them believed it was real. His fingers traced the curve of her back, like she was made of stories. Her lips found the hollow of his throat, the scars on his chest. She memorized him in whispers and trembles. And when they finally collapsed into each other, skin to skin, soul to soul, it wasn't lust, it wasn't recklessness, it was ache, a silent kind of longing that screamed between them. He held her like she was the first thing that had ever felt safe. She touched him like he was a wound that he didn't want to heal. Outside the rain softened into a drizzle. Inside, two hearts broke together quietly. Later, tangled in sheets and that smelled like paint and cologne, Wine whispered, We can't do this again. I know, he said, pressing his lips to her shoulder. Neither of them moved. We don't even love each other, she added, as if saying it would make it true. He didn't argue, but his silence was louder than any confession. The morning after that wasn't messy. It was worse. It was quiet. No wild regret, no passionate declarations, just a thick stillness that neither of them know how to break. Wine dressed without looking at him. Her fingers trembled slightly as she buttoned up her blouse, brushing invisible wrinkles from her soul. Jungkook leaned against the wall, watching the soft light fall across her back. He didn't say stay. He didn't say anything, because whatever happened between them, it wasn't supposed to. It was never allowed to mean anything. But it did. And now, silence screamed. She left without a word. No goodbye, no glance back. Just the soft click of the studio door as it closed between them. Jungkook stood there long after she was gone, staring at the place she had slept, at the pillow that still carried her scent. He picked up his sketchpad and tried to draw, but his hand shook too much to hold the pencil. Wine tried to go back to her life, tried to look at her fiancé without flinching, tried to answer calls with the same fake cheer, tried to sleep without hearing Jungkook's voice in the space beside her. She told herself it meant nothing, that it was just one night, but her heart had started lying louder than her mouth. She avoided the cafe, the lake, the bookstore, And when he finally tested her, "Are you okay?" she didn't respond because if she did, she might break. Days passed, then weeks passed. Then, on a particularly heavy Thursday, she walked past a familiar street and saw him, Jungkook, sitting outside the cafe, alone, sketching. He looked thinner, quieter, like someone had peeled away another layer of his already broken heart. And without thinking, she walked over. "Hey," she said. He looked up slowly, like he was afraid he would imagine her. "You okay?" he asked softly. "I don't know," she whispered. They sat in silence for a while. Then she looked at him, eyes raw. "This isn't love, right?" Jungkook smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "No," he said, "because if it was, we would be allowed to have it." That broke something in her. Later that night, she cried in her car, not because she didn't love him, but because she did, and that was the cruelest part of all. It's been 43 days since that night, since the goodbye that never happened, since the last touch, the only person who ever saw her completely. Wine had almost convinced herself it didn't matter anymore. She had a wedding to plan, a life to decorate, smiles to fake, and vows to write, until one cruel, bitter evening she saw him again. Not in a coffee shop, not near a lake, but in a hospital corridor. She was visiting her friend in oncology, just a quick visit, a 5-minute hug, and flowers in a vase. Her head was down, scrolling through her phone when she turned a corner and froze. Jungkook was sitting in a waiting area, hunched over, pale, tired. He looked like a shadow of the man she remembered. Her heart dropped. She walked up to him before she could stop herself. "Jungkook?" He looked up, eyes dull, skin ashen, smile forced. "Oh," he said softly, like he hadn't decided yet if it was good or bad to see her. "Hey, stranger." "What are you doing here?" she asked. There was a beat of silence. Then he said simply, "I'm dying." It hit her like a punch. He watched her expression change to confusion, disbelief, pain. "Blood cancer," he said, almost casually. "It's poetic, isn't it? My body's been tired of feeling too long." Wine sat beside him, her legs numb. "You didn't tell me," she whispered. "I wasn't supposed to tell you," he said. "You were supposed to forget me, be happy, get married." Her voice cracked. "You think I can forget you?" Jungkook leaned back, closing his eyes. "You should." But Wine wasn't crying, not yet. She was angry. "How long?" "Few months maybe. They have stopped pretending." She stood, shaking. "You knew all this while that night." "I know," he said, voice softer now. "That's why I never asked you to stay." She pressed her hands on her face, trembling. "I hate you," she whispered. "I know," he repeated, like it hurt him to agree. She didn't go home that night. She sat outside the hospital in her car for hours, the engine off, her tears hot and silent. How dare he break her like this? How dare the world let them find each other only to end like this? A week later, she came back to him, to his hospital room filled with fading sketches and machines that beeped too slowly. "You don't get to die alone," she told him, and he didn't argue, because love, even the forbidden kind, doesn't beg for permission. The room smelled like fading lavender and hospital sheets. Jungkook was thinner now, the kind of thin that spoke of a body losing battles it never signed up for. His bones pressed against his skin, like grief pushing out of him from the inside. But when Wine walked in, something flickered in his eyes, not hope, something more dangerous. want, regret, and the kind of love that dares to bloom when it's already dying. She came every day now, with food he couldn't eat, books he never finished, and silence he always filled with glances that said, "Stay." Some days they laughed like nothing was wrong, other days they just sat, her fingers resting here near his, like an unspoken promise neither of them were brave to stay loud. One evening, when the sun spilled gold across the white-floored tiles, she asked, "Do you ever wonder what we could have been?" Jungkook didn't answer right away. Then, voiced them. All the time, she looked at him, eyes rimmed red, fingers not in her lap. "I hate you," she whispered, "for making me feel when I wasn't supposed to, for making me believe in something doomed." His voice broke as he smiled. "I hate you too, for showing up, for staying, for making this the happiest pain I have ever known." She stood suddenly overwhelmed. "You are not feeling very well, Jungkook, and I'm engaged, and we are this isn't how it was supposed to be." "I know. Then why does it feel like home?" "Because you are," he said, "and I think you have always been." She turned away, crying now, quiet, angry tears. He couldn't even hold her anymore. But then his voice, soft but sure. "Come here," she did. And when he kissed her this time, it wasn't desperate, it was final. A kiss heavy with thank yous and I'm sorries, with what ifs and only ifs, with the weight of all the lifetime they had ever, never get. Later, laying beside him on the narrow hospital bed, her head on his chest, his heartbeat faint but real, she whispered, "Promise me something, anything. Don't go without saying goodbye." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "I won't." He would. They both knew it. But in that moment, it was the only lie she ever wanted to hear. Time moves differently when you know it's running out. Every second sketches and folds in on itself. Every glance becomes a memory, every touch becomes a goodbye. It was raining again, of course it was. The sky cried for them because neither of them could afford to break just yet. Wine entered his room in silence. She didn't bring books today, or jokes, or coffee in a thermos. He never thought. She brought herself and him what a little was left of him. He was sitting by the window, covered in blankets, a soft beanie over his now bald head. His eyes, always so intense, were gentler tonight. Tired but lit. "You look beautiful," he said. Wine walked up to him, touched his face with trembling fingers. "You always say that when you are about to scare me." He grinned weakly. "Wouldn't dream of it. Not tonight." She kissed his cheek. "I want tonight to be normal," he whispered. Wine laughed, watery and soft. "We have never been normal. Then let us be us, just one last time." They spent the night in the tiny bed, arms tangled, breath shared, no machines beeping, no nurses interrupting. She had begged them for that much, one night where he could just be. They didn't talk much, they just felt. She lay on his chest, listening to his heartbeat like it was a lullaby with an ending she could bear to hear. He drew lacy circles on her back with her fingers, over and over, as if mapping her to his memory. Then, sometime after midnight, he asked, "Do you think love can outlive time?" She didn't answer. Instead, she whispered, "I think it can outlive us." They made love that night like it was first and last. No urgency, no rush, just slow, aching devotion. Like every moment I said, "I remember you." Like every kiss meant, "Not forget me." And when he finally held her tight, whispering, "Thank you for finding me," she broke, not loudly, just with a soft gasp. Tears soaked his chest. I don't want to lose you, she cried. You won't, he said, lips at her temple. I already am. He didn't argue, just pressed his forehead into hers, and for a moment time stood still, just for them. It happened 2 days later. She was supposed to visit at 10 a.m. She came at 9:47. Breathless, holding the letter she had stayed up for writing all night. It wasn't poetic, it wasn't neat, it was real, ink smudged from tears, the pages folded, kiss pressed to her heart. She had finally written it, everything she never dared to say aloud. She was ready to give it to him, but when she reached his room, it was empty. No hum of machines, no paintbrushes in the corner, no boy with dark eyes and a sketchpad on his lap. Just a folded sheet on the bed. Wine's words loud, then shattered. A nurse entered, voice gentle, too soft for the sound of a salt breaking. I am sorry, he passed early this morning. He was asleep, peaceful. The word hit her like a curse. She didn't scream, she didn't collapse. She just sat down on the chair beside the bed, her letter clutched in her hands, eyes on the blanket that still held the shape of him. She stayed there for hours, didn't cry, until the sun began to set. Then she opened the envelope and began to read it to the space where he should have been. Dear Jungkook, I hate you. I hate you for walking into my life when I wasn't looking for anyone. I hate you for sketching me into the quiet corners of your world, for seeing through my walls like they were made of glass. I hate you for kissing me like it was the only language you knew, for loving me without saying the word once, and for teaching me that silence can still feel like home. And I hate myself for not running away sooner, because now I don't know how to be in a world you are no longer in. But here's the truth, the real truth. I loved you. I love you. In the quiet, in the rain, in the space between the words, and I always will. Yours always, Wayne. She placed the letter on his pillow gently, then she walked out, without looking back, because if she did, she knew she would never leave. A year later, she stood at the lake alone, no ring on her finger, no paint on her skin, just silence and a small sketchbook pressed to her chest. His sketchbook, she opened it, page by page, and on the very last one, a drawing of her, sleeping, with 5 words beneath it, written in his rough, scrawled hand. Right. I loved you. I knew.